when I started to write the book, because I realised we were coming up to 100 years since drugs were first banned in the US, I kind of thought, oh, I know loads about this subject already. You know, I'd written about it a lot as a journalist, I'd lived through it in my family. But I suddenly realised there were loads of incredibly basic questions that I didn't know the answer to, like, why did we go to war against drug users and drug addicts 100 years ago? Why do we carry on when it seems to be failing? What are the alternatives like in practice? And what really causes drug use and drug addiction? The book tells the story of lots of different people I either met or learned about, from, you know, the story of how Billie Holiday, the great jazz singer, was stalked and killed by the man who launched the war on drugs, to the story of a hitman for Los Zetas, who I got to know, who butchered or beheaded about 70 people between the ages of 13 and 17. And it's really important to understand, when we talk about drug legalization, we are not talking about anything abstract, right? It's not a theory, it's not an idea. This has been tried in various places. So for 100 years, we've tried one way, which is ban drugs, transfer them to armed criminal gangs who shoot and kill each other and anyone who gets in their way, as the people of Mexico know better than anyone else. And the alternatives have been chosen. You know, Portugal has decriminalized all drugs. Colorado and Washington State have legalized marijuana. Switzerland has legalized heroin. And one of the biggest things you see in all those places is, if you spend the money not on pointlessly trying to eradicate drugs and kill every last criminal, which just empowers them, but instead spend it on turning addicts' lives around and bankrupting those criminals by taking the trade back from them, huge number of things happen that are really relevant here in Mexico. The single biggest thing is you get a massive fall in the murder rate. Switzerland had a huge problem with violent heroin dealing and huge numbers of deaths from heroin. In the 10 years since they legalized heroin in Switzerland, do you know, I mean, you do know because you've read my book, but there have been no deaths from heroin overdoses, and nobody has been killed by a violent heroin dealer. This is the single biggest moral issue for the people of Mexico, and for the countries like my government that have forced Mexico to pursue this suicidal route. It's really important that people in Mexico know this does not have to happen. The violence I saw in Juarez is, the after effects of the violence I saw in Juarez are some of I've reported from some terrible places. Sometimes people think legalization means anarchy and chaos. What we have now is anarchy and chaos. We have unknown criminals selling unknown chemicals to unknown users, all controlled by violent maniacs, all in the dark. Legalization is a way of restoring order to that chaos. The reason I wrote my book is the stories of people. You know, the whole book is written as stories of people from Billie Holiday to who've been affected by this one way or another. It's because I think, this is a slightly pretentious way of saying it, but I think the drug war is built on dehumanization. It can only continue because we've dehumanized the people involved, whether it's drug dealers, drug users, drug addicts, or the people who live on the supply route countries. And I thought the average person anywhere in the world, if they met Maricela Escobedo's children, like I did, if they met, you know, the homeless street addict in Vancouver who started an uprising that transformed his city, if they met Chino Hardin, who's this transgender crack dealer I got to know in Brooklyn, who's one of the wisest people I know, if they met those people, they would not say, I don't care if these people die, we should carry on with a policy that will kill them. They wouldn't say that. Once you know that the victims of this war are human beings with hopes and dreams and fears, just like you and me and every other human being, you cannot be indifferent to their deaths. And at the moment we have a war that is indifferent to their deaths. And there's a better way waiting for us if we choose it.